What if being a nice person is actually hurting you? What if the thing you've been praised for your entire life is the exact reason people walk over you, ignore you, and take you for granted? You say yes when you want to say no. You stay silent when you should speak up. You give and give and give. But deep inside, you feel exhausted, unseen, and maybe even resentful. This is the hidden cost of being nice. And no one talks about it. The illusion of being nice. What does it really mean to be a nice person? Most people would say it means being kind, being helpful, being someone others enjoy being around. But look a little deeper, and you'll notice something uncomfortable. A lot of what we call niceness isn't actually kindness. It's compliance. It's learned behavior. And in many cases, it's fear in disguise. From a young age, we are conditioned to be nice. We're told to not argue, to not upset others, to not make things awkward. Just say sorry. Just go along with it. Don't create a scene. And slowly, without realizing it, we start associating being liked with being agreeable. We learn that approval comes from fitting in, not from standing out. So we adapt. We smile when we're uncomfortable. We agree when we actually disagree. We say yes when everything inside us is screaming no. But here's where the illusion begins. Because on the surface, it looks like you're being a good person. You're easy to deal with. You don't cause problems. You keep everyone happy. But underneath that surface, there's a different reality. You're not expressing yourself. You're editing yourself. And over time, this becomes automatic. You stop asking yourself what you really want. You stop checking in with your own needs. You stop questioning whether something feels right or wrong. Instead, your focus shifts outward. What will they think? Will this upset them? Will they still like me? Your life becomes a constant performance, where your role is to make everyone else comfortable. And here's the dangerous part. The more nice you become, the more disconnected you become from who you actually are. Because every time you ignore your own feelings, every time you silence your own voice, you send yourself a message. My truth doesn't matter. And when you repeat that message long enough, you start believing it. That's why so many nice people feel lost. They don't know what they want. They don't know what they stand for. They don't even know what makes them happy anymore. Because their entire identity has been built around other people's expectations. And the hardest truth to accept is this: people don't always reward you for being nice. In fact, many times, they take advantage of it. Not necessarily because they're bad people, but because you've taught them what to expect from you. You've shown them that your time is always available. Your energy is always accessible. Your boundaries are flexible, or worse, non-existent. So the illusion continues. You believe that being nice will earn you respect, but instead, it often leads to being overlooked. You believe that avoiding conflict will keep relationships strong, but instead, it creates shallow connections. Because real connection requires honesty, and honesty sometimes creates discomfort. The truth is, being nice is often just a strategy to avoid rejection, a strategy to avoid confrontation, a strategy to feel safe in a world where approval feels like survival. But safety comes at a cost, because the more you protect yourself from discomfort, the more you sacrifice authenticity. And one day, you wake up and realize something. You've spent your whole life trying to be the person everyone likes, but you never became the person you truly are. That's the illusion of being nice. It looks like kindness from the outside, but on the inside, it's self-abandonment, the real cost of niceness. At first, being nice doesn't seem like a problem. In fact, it feels like the right thing to do. People appreciate you. They call you easygoing. They say you're a good person. And for a while, that feels enough. But slowly, quietly, something starts to change. The cost doesn't show up all at once. It builds over time, in small moments. Moments where you wanted to say no, but said yes. Moments where you wanted to speak up, but stayed silent. Moments where you felt disrespected, but brushed it off to keep the peace. And each time that happens, you lose a small piece of yourself. Not dramatically, not in a way that anyone else notices, but internally. You feel it, because every time you ignore your own needs, you're teaching yourself a dangerous lesson. Other people matter more than me. And the more you repeat that lesson, the more it becomes your reality. You start prioritizing everyone else's happiness, while slowly abandoning your own. You become the person everyone relies on, but no one really checks on. You're always there for others, but when you need someone, it feels like no one is there for you. And that's when the exhaustion begins. Not just physical exhaustion, but emotional exhaustion. The kind that doesn't go away with rest. Because it's not your body that's tired. It's your identity. You're tired of pretending, tired of agreeing, tired of carrying expectations that were never yours to begin with. But you don't stop, because somewhere along the way, you started believing that your worth comes from being needed, from being liked, from being the person who never causes problems. And that belief traps you. It keeps you stuck in a cycle where the more you give, the more people expect, the more you tolerate, the more people push, the more you stay silent, the less your voice matters. And the hardest part, most people won't even realize what they're doing. They'll continue to take, because you've never shown them your limits. You've never shown them where you end and where they begin. So over time, something shifts inside you. What once felt like kindness starts turning into quiet frustration, then into resentment. You start thinking things like, why am I always the one who gives? Why do people only come to me when they need something? Why does no one appreciate me the way I appreciate them? But you don't say it out loud. You keep smiling, keep helping, keep being nice. And that's the real cost. It's not just that people take advantage of you. It's that you lose your sense of self in the process. You forget what you like, what you want, what you need, because your entire life has been shaped around everyone else. And here's the truth most people avoid. Being too nice doesn't create better relationships. It creates unbalanced ones. Relationships where one person gives and the other receives. Where one person adjusts and the other expects. Where one person sacrifices and the other benefits. That's not connection. That's quiet self-neglect. And eventually, you reach a breaking point. Not always in a dramatic way. Sometimes it's subtle. A moment where you finally feel done. Done explaining. Done giving. Done pretending. And in that moment, you realize something powerful. You weren't being kind to others at the expense of being kind to yourself. That's the real cost of niceness. It doesn't just drain your energy. It disconnects you from who you truly are. The silent resentment. There's something most nice people don't talk about. Not because it's rare, but because it's uncomfortable. It doesn't show on the surface. It doesn't explode in anger. It doesn't create scenes. It stays quiet, but it's always there. It's resentment, not the loud kind, not the kind that screams or argues, but the silent kind, the kind that builds slowly, over time, layer by layer. It starts in small moments. When you say yes, but mean no. When you help someone, but feel unappreciated. When you go out of your way for others, and no one notices. At first you ignore it. You tell yourself, it's not a big deal. They didn't mean it. I shouldn't feel this way. So you push it down, again and again and again. But emotions don't disappear just because you ignore them. They stay. They collect. They grow. And slowly, that quiet discomfort turns into something heavier. You begin to feel drained around certain people. Even if they've done nothing wrong, you start getting irritated over small things. Things that normally wouldn't bother you. You feel exhausted, not because of what you're doing, but because of what you're holding inside. And here's the confusing part. On the outside, nothing has changed. You're still smiling, still helping, still being the nice one. But inside, something feels off. You start asking yourself questions you don't have answers to. Why do I feel this way? Why am I getting annoyed so easily? Why do I feel so unappreciated, even when I'm doing everything right? And the truth is, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just doing too much, without being real. Because resentment doesn't come from giving. It comes from giving, while ignoring your own needs. It comes from saying yes when you want to say no. It comes from pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Every time you betray your own feelings, you create a small internal conflict. And when those conflicts pile up, they turn into resentment. And the longer it stays unexpressed, the more it changes you. You become less patient, less present, less genuine. Your kindness starts to feel forced. Your words start to feel heavy. Your energy starts to feel different. And sometimes, that silent resentment leaks out in ways you don't expect. A sarcastic comment, a passive-aggressive tone, a sudden withdrawal from people you used to care about. Not because you're a bad person, but because you've been holding too much for too long. And here's the hardest truth to accept. The people around you might not even know you're hurting, because you never showed them. You never told them when something bothered you. You never set a boundary. You never expressed your limits. So from their perspective, everything is fine, which makes the resentment even deeper, because now it feels like they should know. But the reality is, they can't know what you never showed. And this is where many nice people get stuck. They feel hurt, but don't speak. They feel overwhelmed, but don't stop. They feel unappreciated, but keep giving. It becomes a silent cycle. Give, suppress, resent, repeat. Until one day, you don't feel like yourself anymore. And that's when you realize the problem was never your kindness. It was the lack of honesty behind it. Because true kindness doesn't create resentment. Honest kindness feels light. It feels genuine. It feels free. But niceness built on suppression, it always comes with a cost. And that cost is emotional weight you were never meant to carry. So if you feel that quiet frustration inside you, that heaviness you can't explain, that irritation that comes out of nowhere, it's not random. It's not weakness. It's a signal that something inside you has been ignored for too long. And maybe it's time to finally listen. Why people don't respect nice. This might be hard to hear, but being nice doesn't automatically earn you respect. In fact, sometimes it does the opposite, because respect isn't built on how much you give. It's built on how clearly you value yourself. Think about it. If someone always agrees with everything you say, never challenges you, never sets boundaries, do you truly respect them? Or do you just expect them? That's what happens when you're always nice. You become predictable, always available, always agreeable, always willing. And over time, people stop appreciating it. Not because they're bad people, but because there's no resistance, no standard, no boundary. Human nature is simple. We value what feels limited. We respect what has boundaries. We recognize what stands firm. But when you're always saying yes, there's nothing to value, because your time feels unlimited. Your energy feels endless. Your presence feels guaranteed. And when something feels guaranteed, it gets taken for granted. That's why people cancel plans with you last minute. That's why they come to you only when they need something. That's why they don't think twice before crossing a line. Not because they want to hurt you, but because you never showed them where the line is. Respect is not about being liked. It's about being understood. It's about showing people, this is who I am. This is what I accept. And this is what I don't. But when you avoid conflict at all costs, you avoid clarity. And without clarity, people fill in the gaps themselves. They assume you're okay with everything. They assume you don't mind. They assume you'll always adjust. And the more you adjust, the less they do. That's the hidden shift. The more nice you become, the more invisible you become. Because you stop standing out. You stop expressing your opinions. You stop showing your boundaries. You stop showing your real self. And without those things, there's nothing for people to truly respect. Respect comes from honesty, from saying what others are afraid to say, from standing your ground when it's uncomfortable, from choosing truth over approval. And yes, that might upset some people. It might create tension. It might even make some people walk away. But here's the truth. The people who only value you when you're easy to deal with never truly respected you in the first place. Real respect comes from authenticity, from knowing that you're not trying to please. You're choosing to be real. And when you start doing that, something changes. People may not always agree with you, but they start taking you seriously. They start thinking twice before crossing a line. They start recognizing your value because you finally recognize it yourself. So if you feel like people don't respect you, ask yourself this: have I shown them my boundaries? Or have I only shown them my compliance? Because people don't respect nice. They respect clarity. They respect confidence. They respect self-respect. And the moment you stop trying to be liked by everyone is the moment people start seeing your true worth. There's a huge difference between being nice and being kind. Nice people avoid discomfort. Kind people tell the truth. Nice people seek approval. Kind people have self-respect. Nice people sacrifice themselves. Kind people set boundaries. Kindness is honest. Niceness is often a mask. And the moment you remove that mask, your life begins to change. So how do you break free? It starts with one simple shift. Stop trying to be liked. Start trying to be real. Say no without over-explaining. Speak your opinion, even if your voice shakes. Set boundaries, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Because the truth is, the people who only like you when you're nice never really respected you to begin with. And the people who truly value you, they will respect you more. When you respect yourself, the moment you stop being nice and start being real, something powerful happens. You stop chasing approval. You stop feeling drained. You stop losing yourself in other people's expectations. And for the first time, you feel free. Being a good person doesn't mean being a weak person. You can be kind and still say no. You can care about others and still choose yourself. You can be respectful without tolerating disrespect. So stop trying to be the nice person everyone likes and become the real person people respect. If this message resonated with you, take a moment and ask yourself, where in your life are you being nice at the cost of your own peace? Comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want more content like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and join the journey. Because becoming real is where your life truly begins.